Let's talk about tips on threading your sewing machine. There are a few things to know to make sure that you have success. First thing that you want to know is that you always have to have your needle up into the highest position. Now, to move your needle, there's a couple of things that you can do. Your machine might have a little button called the up-down button, and that's going to go down when you press it and go up when you press it again, and that's going to position it correctly. If your machine doesn't have this little button, you can also manually bring your needle up to the highest position by using your hand wheel. Remember when you're using your hand wheel that you always have to rotate it towards you. So you want to just rotate it like this, bring it all the way up. In doing this, you are bringing up the take-up lever, and that is also important. That's the other thing that you need up top here. It's this little lever where your thread's going to come through. Because by putting your needle up in the highest position, this is in the proper position for when you start to thread. The next thing that you need to make sure that you do is you need to lift up your presser foot. You can do that by using a lever on the side of your machine or on the back here. What that does is it opens up your tension discs. With my machine, those tension discs are within my machine. But what it does is it opens those discs and will allow the thread to be placed between the discs. And then when you put the presser foot down to sew, it's going to close those discs on your thread, and that gives you the proper tension while you're sewing. If you don't have your presser foot up when you thread your machine, then you try to put it through right here and it just sits on the outside. When you go to sew, you're gonna get some loops or knots and you're just gonna have a mess. In order to make sure that you're successful with threading your machine, remember, needle in your highest position, take-up lever is at the top, and your presser foot is up. Now that we know those, let's go ahead and thread our machine. Every machine is different. You're going to start with your spool of thread on your spool pin. My spool pin, as you can see, is horizontal. It is sideways. Some have a little spool that's vertical. You would then place your spool of thread like this, or it sometimes is set right here. You want to make sure that your thread comes off the appropriate direction as per your instruction manual. For my machine, I need my thread coming off the bottom, so I'm going to slip that onto my spool pin. And then I am going to put my spool cap on. All this does is prevents my spool of thread from coming off the spool pin. I've already got my needle in the proper position. I've got my thread take up at the top and I've got my presser foot up, so I am good to go. I usually pull a little bit extra and then I follow the lines, I should say the numbers. Most machines are numbered. Mine has a 1, a 2, a 3. You just simply follow it along. When you come back up, there's that take up. You start to the right and then pull it around to the left. What that does is it catches in there, so you went up on the right of the take up and you're coming down on the left. And then you pull it down and go around the guide. On my machine, I have a little thread guide before I get to the needle, so I'm going to place that behind it, and then you would thread your needle. There's a couple of ways you can do this. If your machine has a needle threader, you can utilize that and it'll make it nice and easy to pull your thread through and easily thread your needle. The other thing that I like to do is just do it with my tweezers. I find that pretty slick as well. If you have issues threading, just clip off the end and you'll have a nice fresh end and no little phrase will hinder you from being able to thread your needle. Most machines or home machines, you want to thread your machine from the front to the back. And you don't want that thread to get twisted around the needle, so just carefully pull that through and then you take it and place it under and behind. Your top thread is ready to go. The next thing that you need is your bobbin thread. So your bobbin thread is down below in your machine. This little guy is called a bobbin, and then you wind your bobbin thread. There's a certain way that you need to install this in your machine. You can think of it in the direction of being a P, like this, boop. You want your thread to be coming off that left-hand side. What I like to do is just drop it in and then hold it with my finger And there's little notches on your machine. It's called on your shuttle hook, but your manual will walk you through exactly how to do it because some machines are slightly different. But my machine, I have to go around this little notch here, make sure my thread's in there, and then pull it around and cut it at the 2. Put my cover plate back on, and guess what? I am ready to sew. If you do need to fill a bobbin, you would have to use your bobbin winder. Let me grab an empty bobbin here. A little spare. I'm gonna wind this bobbin so you can see. I'm going to need this thread, so I need to take it out of my machine. Anytime that you need to pull anytime you need to pull the thread through the machine, clip it up at the top. If I can find you, there we go. Clip it up at the top. Never pull it up through the machine this way. You're gonna put lint in your machine and you can cause issues. So you always wanna clip it at the top and then make sure your presser foot is up so those tension discs aren't holding your thread tight. It's opening it back up and you can go whoop, and pull your thread out. We need to wind the bobbin. It'll have a little diagram of where to follow for winding your bobbin. If it doesn't, once again, just check your manual and it'll walk you through the process. So this one, I have to come through here, follow my 2, but instead of coming forward, I'm gonna go back. I like to hold my thread and kind of floss it through to make sure that it's good and in there. Next up, you take your bobbin and from the center, you bring your thread through the center. See if you can see this. Through the center and up through the hole on the side. So it looks like that. And then make sure that your thread is at the top, not the bottom. Thread is at the top. Place it on your bobbin winder. And then for my machine, I just, click it over. And then my machine is ready to fill the bobbin. I'll hold that thread straight up and then spin it around a few times. I'm doing this by pressing my foot control. It starts it out. My machine recommends that we wind the bobbin at medium speed. So I'm going to clip this thread now that it's started and it's holding. And then I can simply press my foot control and fill up that bobbin. If you have any questions about threading your machine or filling your bobbin, you can, like I said, either look at the manual or reach out to me and I will do my best to walk you through the process. I hope this helps.